Hi guys, it's Kelly Latevola here, and I am back with another video for Simon Says Stamp, and today we're going to be making this Valentine. It's a little bit of a different color scheme for me, but that's cool. It's good to branch out. So we're going to be using the Elizabeth Bath Round, the Love Stamps. I didn't show you the dies, but we're using those two, Spring Flowers, and then the Heart Loop. And so my original idea going in was I wanted to cut the pieces apart so that I could have the flowers behind the heart loop, and then I also cut the actual loop out of some slate gray cardstock. I'm going to be stamping this background in Simon Says Stamp apricot ink, and I just am inking up the top of it because that's the only part I'm going to be using. I tried this stamp a couple of different ways, and I found it was easiest for me to treat it like a large cling background. So that means I'm inking it up with the stamp face up, and then I'm going to place my paper on top of it. I'm going to use just a scrap piece of paper so I don't get ink all over my hands, and just kind of push and rub it down. You want to make sure that you always keep one hand still so that your paper isn't moving, otherwise you won't get a good image. And then once I picked it up, I immediately loved it. Like, it just seemed so like regal, like very Cinderella to me. So I just totally adore this background. But I wanted to incorporate some flowers because I love florals. I don't care what time of year it is. I love florals. And especially if I'm getting something for Valentine's Day, which my husband and I don't usually celebrate, but I want me some flowers. So I'm going to go ahead and stamp and mask some flowers and leaves from this set, just kind of all around that little heart shape that's there. And I'm using full stick Post-it notes as my masking paper. That's what I cut them out of. Once that was done, I wanted to give myself a kind of a soft glow in the background, but I didn't want to worry about my masks moving, so I'm just trimming them off right along the little edge die so that I don't have to worry about them moving around on me. I'm going to go in first with the dried marigold. It is the closest match to the apricot ink, and so I took that one up the highest, not completely covering it, but just kind of blending that in so it was softer on the bottom. Also, I didn't mask any of my leaves. Here's why. I'm lazy. They are very intricate to cut out, so I cut out two just to get the stamping correct, but then I just left them unmasked for the distressing portion so all the colors would match. I took that abandoned coral just up around the edges. I didn't take it all the way up, just to give it more of a peachy feel, I guess. So I knew when I picked out the apricot that it was going to go with the gray, and I really liked that, so I thought I would bring in some more gray-based teal colors. So these are BGs, and I'm coloring them. Basically, I'm approaching the leaves. There's not a lot to color because they're so far underneath the flowers, but that's okay. Whenever you're coloring something where one is laying on top of the other, you're going to pay most attention to the shadows. So I always start with my lightest color and then work out to my darkest. This is just a personal preference thing, so I don't get too heavy-handed with my darks, but you do it however is comfortable for you. If you feel like you can start with your darkest color, that's totally fine. I usually end up going over mine twice just because I feel like that gives me the best blend, but you certainly don't have to do that. So once I had that little pieces part done, I moved on to the larger leaf. I left two of them in here just so you could see how I colored an entire leaf. So you can see I'm leaving that line in the center of the large one because I wanted to give it some shape, some body. So I'm going with how it was originally drawn. I'm rounding it out, that line, so that it matches the shape of the leaf that's already there, and this is just going to help give it more dimension. Again, these leaves are going to be mostly dark in color just because of the way that they're laying underneath the flowers, but I have a really hard time doing florals with no leaves. I feel like you need that greenery to break it up, just like you would in real life with a floral arrangement. So once I have, you know, basically the outline of where the mapping, that's a better word. Once I've mapped where I want my shadows to go, I'm just going to go back in with some more color, a little more heavy-handed. And you can see, even though we just added that one line in the large leaf, it really gives it some body, some shape. And then we're going to start in on the flowers. I picked more rose colors, I guess. These are not traditional colors for me. I'm normally like neons. Like that's how I roll. But I do still think that this color combination is very pretty. For these particular flowers, I decided that I was going to go in and add shading from the top and the bottom. This is going to give them a more round look. So I'm using a light hand and a feathering stroke, and I'm just taking the colors up from the bottom and then also down from the top, leaving a highlight in the center. That's what's going to give you the more round appearance. And again, you have to pay attention to things that are laying on top of one another. So the petal that's to the left is going to be substantially darker than the rest of the petals because it's underneath a leaf. So as I'm going through, you can see how big of a highlight I'm leaving. I know that you can see the stamping of the Elizabeth background through it. I'm totally fine with it because I feel like that apricot color adds a little bit of interest, and it's not anything that's going to be so eye-catching that it's going to take away from the whole image. So I was fine with leaving it in. If you're not, you can mask your flowers and then stamp your background. That's fine too. I just liked that little peachy glow that I was getting through the flowers and the leaves. So now that we're almost down to the last color, you can see that there is still some of that peach showing, but it's very little once you do the last color. So from here, I'm just going to do the rest of the flowers. And then I always outline all of my images. So I'm using a EK Success journaling pen. This is just, I like a bold outline. If you don't, you can totally skip this step. That's fine. I just feel like it gives a cleaner look and makes my colors pop a little bit more. And since I had a little bit more going on in this card than I normally do, I definitely wanted them to pop off from the background. So once I had cut everything through my Big Shot, and I decided that I was going to fill that heart in with the white. I was originally leaving the bottom half of my card white, and I felt like leaving that heart white would kind of tie it together. I ended up not liking that. So I put my glue down, and then I just found it easier to put my card front on top of the glue versus trying to line everything up on my card and then gluing it down. So this is how it originally looked. This, like, the title of this video should actually be called The Struggle is Real, because it totally didn't go the way that I planned. So I decided to bust out the love dies. Originally I was going to stamp a little always in the heart. It just looked boxy and off. So I decided to make it a love U, and I stamped the U in Simon Says black ink. And now I am adding just little dots of Tombow Mono Multi Glue to adhere the two die pieces together. I know a lot of people use tweezers and stuff. If you have them, that's fine. If you don't, make do. I don't even own a pair, so I'm good with that. And then I'm going to go ahead and glue this down to my card using that same adhesive. I just prefer liquid adhesive. But I really didn't like you couldn't tell it was a heart. So now I'm like, okay, well, do I like it better with the darker background and the white heart? Like, maybe that's okay. So I'm going to go ahead and try that. Then once that was down, I felt like you couldn't really see the heart loop. So I was trying to find a way to differentiate the two. So I'm going to bring in some clear Wink Stella. I added that to the Love die cut, which I have to tell you, I totally love this die cut. Because this is how I do when I do my one layer cards. I outline my sentiments in white so they pop, and this kind of does it for you, which is awesome. So put some clear Wink Stella on the heart loop, and it still didn't pop. So now I'm going to go back in with the same markers that I used for the flowers, and I'm going to color in that heart. Once I did this, I liked the card much better. I wish in hindsight that I had stamped the flowers in the heart. I didn't do that, but you know me, we're not starting over again, we're rolling with it. So I colored in the whole thing, and then I added in this same shading with the colors that I used for the flowers so that everything would kind of blend together. Careful to avoid that white U. Once I did that, don't mind my head there, I didn't like the black U. So I had to go in, and you could see my head because I was trying to get the U directly stamped on top of the other U so I could white heat emboss it. So I prepared it with my powder tool and then went ahead and cleaned everything up because I knew I was going to catch more embossing powder in the pieces parts that I had already adhered. And then I heat set it. then I was much happier with it, except the heart still felt a little blank. So I went ahead and added some clear sequins to just kind of accent that U a little bit. And then I was done with the card. Except I didn't really like the gray. Like, I felt like the heart loop still got lost. So at the end of the day, when you see the final picture, the bottom is white because I just preferred the clean white space. But either way is totally good. So I hope you learned a little bit something, and thank you so much for joining me. I will catch you guys on the next video. Bye.